Cartojano.
Yes.
So yeah, now the floor is
Wait, sorry, this is the microphone because this is.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Are we all awake? Okay, so I'm Maya. I'm actually Marjorie, but I'd like to be called Maya. And this is a paper by both of us, Ray. We're both faculty members of Trinity University of Asia. And we are actually in active practice. We're actually active planners for 10 years now, and we've been consultants, licensed consultants for more than 15 years. So we're also active in the profession because we are holding, we're holding positions in the professional association, a regional. I'm currently the president of the regional organization of environmental planners, while Ray here is the national chairman of Parks, which is we love to license ourselves in the Philippines. So anyway, my study focuses on the lived experiences of licensed environmental planners because they play a very big role in the land use planning process of our country. So in a nutshell, I'll be presenting my paper in 3 ways. First, maybe because just to give you a nutshell of what the Philippines is, where it is, and then the subject of my study, which are the licensed environmental planners. And then I try to fit in my topics in our session theme, which is mapping, spatial planning, wherein I'll be discussing many of the areas by which they found issues with the planners as they went about doing the land use plan. And it is where I will also be discussing the challenges that they have encountered. So, in a nutshell, Philippines, we have not much population. We're also very much highly populated. We have, if you can see the map, we're so much geographically distributed. We have very many islands. We have 7,641 islands. And we have a land area of around 300,000 kilometers. So, maybe I'd like to ask you a question. Do you know where in the world we have the most populated city? The most populated city is located not in India, not in China, but actually in the Philippines. And you can find it right over there. So we have so much people that are clustered towards our capital, which is Manila. So we have been working towards decentralization, moving them back to where they came from, so that they can find livelihood employment and not be so dense populated in that area. So you can see from 2015 to 2020, they have already returned a bit to the provinces, and the 2025 looks even more colorful. The population-wise, we are stable. We have been growing steadily, but if you observe 2020 data on the right, we already can see a bit of contraction, low birth rate in 2020, and even so more now. Given that much birth rate, we have actually a big problem of around 6 million houses that we need to provide to our population. So the next topic would be the planners. These are the subject of my study. We have a law which was really just passed in 2013, which institutionalized the profession of environmental planning. We don't call ourselves urban planner, maybe because the Philippines is really not much that urbanized yet. So it's environmental planners. We call ourselves environmental planner, but these are what we are doing. And you cannot just be an environmental planner in the Philippines. You have to go through a rigid training, and you have to get a license. You have to take the board exam and pass the exam. And this was actually the strategy of the Philippines because we wanted to really do the planning process professionally. The law actually required that if you want the heads and assistant heads of the departments of any government office in the Philippines, especially those that are involved in planning, must be licensed environmental planners. So we wanted the people deciding on urban planning to be licensed technocrats. Of course, that comes with liability because we have to really capacitate ourselves because it can be liable for the plans that you make. And in the Philippines, if you cannot just do planning, you have, unless there's reciprocity, meaning you also allow Filipino planners to work in your country, or you must work with Filipino environmental planners. So because of that law, there were a lot of people who got the license. To date, we have around 6,615 environmental planners nationwide. You can find them all over the national agencies. We have 21 departments. More importantly, they're in the environmental, natural resources, the urban development, the economic planning, energy tourism. They're there. More particularly, the regional offices of these national agencies. And because we have so many local governments. We have 81 provinces headed by governor. We have 149 cities headed by a mayor. And then we have little municipalities which are headed by municipal mayors. And in each of these local governments, you have environmental planners who are also heading the departments of planning and environment. And we are also very participative. We wanted to involve the stakeholders. So in every planning process, we are always civil society organizations in all of this local government planning. And this is where we are also, from the private sector. Because those of us who are not in the government, we are in the private sector and helping out as CSOs. So these are the things that we do. If you're with the national government, you do the national planning, the land use planning, the forest land use planning, the zoning. And these are all the plans that we do. If you're in the private sector, you also might be helping out with government consulting works. Or for us, we also do a lot of environmental planning works for investors, no? And who are coming in the country, or those who are homegrown and expanding their operations. So, so this was just 10 years ago, for the planning profession to be professionalized and very much involved in planning. In terms of spatial planning, we also have only recently formalized planning through a board which we call the the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board in 1981. But it was only in 1993 that we have really looked into work to have land use planning in every local governments that we have. And it was only recently in 2019 that we said, because the environmental plans are already in place nationwide, that we said that we cannot anymore do this in just board level. It has to be a department. So we created the DSUD, Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, in 2019. Then the pandemic came, so we were not really able to push it forward. But after that, there were a lot of spatial planning already that was integrated by DSUD. So in 2021, we have formalized our land use planning. In 2023, we have integrated disaster risk management and data in land use planning. And finally, in 2024, they are introducing transit-oriented development or sustainable mobility in land use planning. So let me just focus on one of the core concerns by planners, because if you can see here, in the Philippines, we are losing our forest cover. In 1950s, we have around 60% of our total land area covered by forests. In 1980, it's down to 23.7%, and very recently in the 2000s, we have only 3% forest cover. So one of the objective really of land use planning was to bring back our forest cover. We have a law in the Philippines that lands that have a slope of 18% and above should not be developed, should be part of the forest cover. And that's actually what we've been trying to do also with our land use planning. So we have a lot of forest laws, and we have integrated in the land use planning what we call the forest land use plan, wherein we're trying to get back our forests, because that's actually, and all of these are part of the land use plans that we ask our local governments to prepare, that should be integrated to our land use plan. Of course, as part of the findings of the study, there were a lot of problems when we implemented that in 2019. We have huge data gaps. The planners themselves still need a lot of training. Of course, we had resistance from politicians, from businessmen who used to be stewards of these forest lands, were actually the main cause why we are losing forest cover. We also have indigenous people in there who may also be depending on the forest lands for their livelihood. And there are a lot of conflicting policies or maybe enforcement for tourism, agriculture, and mining. Another thing that we also integrated in our land use plan is disasters. No? We wanted our plans, it was just in, I think, 2 years ago, that it was required that land use plan should really integrate all these maps, all the disasters that are affecting the country. So you have that. All these maps are part already of our land use plans. And one of the findings is still the same. We went through a lot of trainings. It's a good thing that you have here people who are already trained. So the learning curve was really faster. And then we had a lot of problems still, but at least the plans are already in place. And very recently, in 2024, the government already had a framework of transit-oriented development and sustainable mobility that should be integrated in our land use planning. So we are now trying to learn this again so that we can integrate it. So this is the situation in the Philippines. This was actually my study. And I think we would like to get inputs. I guess it is actually an opportunity for me to also get inputs from this scholarly body if we are going towards the right direction. But so my study was, I think we had another study looking into how effective was that law. We had that law creating professionalizing the urban planning profession, and we want to know whether we are successful in having them really in place. We will be doing another study of where the 6,000 planners are. Are they in position? What are their problems? So this will be the next study of focus. So I guess that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. Are there any questions? Any comments?
Just a quick question.
Because I need the.
Thank you. Just a very quick question from the presentation. Now, in Philippines, as you said that there are no urban planners or planners who are doing with urban control, development control, and so on, right? Who do that? Like, say, municipal planning, for example, right? Building application processing and development control. Who does that? The same environmental planners?
Yes. So let's say in a municipal level, we have the building permits, building that is regulated by the building official office. She is an environmental planner. Then she will have to go through environmental impact assessments by the office of the environmental office of the city, and that's also this office is also headed by
City planning. City planning.
Now,
yeah, city planning. And then you also have the city planning office, or the municipal planning offices are also headed by environmental planners.
question there is that how do you teach them, like in the university, because planning is a very broad and wide area, and also there are different planning professionals have been managed. How do you teach them, like at the university?
Yeah, they have, usually all our environmental planners, they underwent a course on environmental planning, maybe a degree course and a master's degree course, and they have to take the board exam, so they already have a good grasp of the planning process. And then they are also required to do annual trainings, especially for this, in doing land use plan. These are the frequent annual monthly trainings for us to really deliver all of the standards.
According to you, the major issue there is that the urbanization, land degradation of the and forest covers and so on. No? That is a major issue that you have highlighted from the background.
Yes, that's why besides the local level, we have a national agency called the Environmental Department that also looks into these issues about degradation of our forests and all the impacts of the different developments to the environment. And these are also headed by environmental planners. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation. I was wondering whether there's any mechanism or plan to actually measure performance of these localities. I mean, there's great tools now with remote sensing, with the release of Sentinel-2 data, for example, which is now even on a monthly basis. So in a way that opens the door to naming and shaming, ranking, highlighting successes and failures and so on. So is this on the cards, and could you collaborate maybe with universities to help do that to scale basically for the entire country?
Yes, because as we mentioned, as we went through the process, we identified a lot of data gaps. So we had really a lot of collaboration with universities. We're providing us all this information, as well as the national agencies are also getting funding so that we have the right data at the right time to help us in our decision making. But we're not there yet. We're just moving towards that direction. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. You begin with saying about this licensed planner in Philippines. Yeah. It makes me wonder: is there such thing as an unlicensed planner? And if there is, like, how does that work within the structure that often planners have to work with the government and so on? And if there isn't, when must you be licensed as a planner? And I'm asking this from the point of in many cities across the world, particularly Global South. I come from architecture background, and there's plenty of unlicensed architects. There are more unlicensed architects than there are licensed architects. But there is a revisit into this notion of why must you be licensed, and what does that tell about the position of and the act of making and the making of the cities in relation to where the state wants it to go.
Okay, on the question of unlicensed, because that's actually a problem. We call them colorum professionals in our country. If the law was very recent, 2013. So even before that, there are a lot of planners already that are already assisting the governments, consultants already helping out in all of this, doing this planning and consultancy works. And then comes the law that says you have to be a licensed environmental planner. So we do have a lot of unlicensed practicing, but there are of course penalty clauses, there are disincentives towards that direction. So we have that problem, but we are slowly, hopefully, as we mainstream the profession, we would hopefully ask them to join our ranks, since they have been doing this, but they have to undergo the process of learning and the process of the board exams and all. So I hope I answered your question.
My question is, thank you for the presentation. You mentioned forest land use plans. So usually forests are managed or forests are conserved. So what kind of land use would you permit in forest land use plans?
Can you rephrase a bit?
The forest land use plan you
Uh-huh.
mentioned.
Yes.
So how do you prepare the forest land use plan, and is there any interventions in the forest?
Yes, the plans, we have to, it's the same thing as the comprehensive land use plans. We have to take zones, identify which of them are production forests, protective forests, and which of them we have, that there should not be any developments because biodiversity is very, very rich in these areas. There are areas that are, as we cross-map it with disaster maps, prone to landslides, and then therefore there's also zones for that. So that's how we do our forest land use plans. And then for the production area, we also identify which areas, because in the Philippines, we saw that ecotourism can be a means by which you can also preserve, because maybe the government cannot fully take care of these areas, but we have ecotourism where in the local community will be part, is an alternative livelihood for the whole local community, because the local community sometimes are the ones exploiting these natural resources. So if they have an alternative livelihood like tourism, then they can also help protecting it. So we also identify the ecotourism zones that can be developed, but of course this has to be managed and well, because sometimes when we give lands for ecotourism development, then they build concrete, very massive ecotourism facilities, which defeats the purpose of preserving the area. I hope that was responsive.
Yes. Do you allow plantations in forest?
There are production forests wherein, yes, they are allowed, but to a certain extent, like maybe 6 trees per hectare can only be cut, something like that, which is also sometimes abused. If not monitored by us. Thank you.
Okay, I would say if there is any other questions, we will just do it later because we are a little later on schedule. So I would say next one will